Captain Lyle Reed had always believed that his mission on the alien world of Xerix would be just another routine inspection. A soldier at heart, Lyle was used to dealing with the unknown, but nothing had prepared him for the events that were about to unfold. His team was part of a diplomatic mission sent to establish communication with a newly discovered species, the Xerix. The humans knew little about them except for their advanced technology and mysterious reputation. The mission had been straightforward so far: set up a base, observe, and report back. But things took a dramatic turn when the humans were ambushed while exploring the dense forests of Xerix. As the team trekked deeper into the unknown terrain, they were suddenly surrounded by a group of towering alien warriors. With their strange armor and weapons, the Xerix were unlike anything Lyle had seen before. The soldiers moved with a precision that spoke of their superior training, and their glowing eyes seemed to pierce through the dense fog. Lyle's team didn't stand a chance against them. Before he could give any orders, Lyle was knocked to the ground, his weapon knocked from his hand. The world seemed to blur around him as his soldiers struggled, only to be restrained by the aliens. He was dragged to his feet and forced to walk, his hands bound by energy cuffs. He had no idea what fate awaited them. The group was escorted to a massive structure, an alien palace that shimmered in the light of the twin suns. Inside, they were brought before Princess Ilara, the only daughter of the Xerix king. Her presence commanded the room. She was tall, regal, with piercing violet eyes that studied Lyle, as though she was assessing more than just his appearance. Her gaze felt like a challenge, one that Lyle was unsure he was prepared to meet. Ilara spoke in a language the humans couldn't understand, but her tone was calm and measured. The aliens around her seemed to react to her every word, as if they were awaiting her orders. The translation devices that Lyle's team carried had yet to pick up anything, and it was clear this would be more difficult than any diplomatic mission he had ever undertaken. "Human Captain Lyle Reed," Ilara finally said in perfect English, surprising him. "I've been watching you. You have the courage I need. I will offer you a chance to prove your worth, on my terms. You will face me in a trial of strength and wit. Survive, and you will be free. Fail, and your people will not see another sunrise. Do you accept?" Lyle blinked in disbelief. A trial. He had no idea what she was asking, but his instincts kicked in. He had faced worse odds in the past, and if this was his only shot at survival, he would take it. With a steady voice, Lyle met her eyes and replied, "I accept." Princess Ilara gave him a slight nod, an unreadable smile playing at the corners of her lips. The challenge was set. It wasn't just a battle for his survival anymore. It was a test of everything he stood for. As the royal guards began to prepare the arena, Lyle couldn't help but wonder, what kind of world had he just stepped into? Oh, for many. The sun hung low in the sky as Lyle was led into the arena, his pulse quickening with each step. The ground beneath him was uneven, a patchwork of rocks and sand that seemed to shift with every movement. The air was thick with tension as the Xerix warriors formed a circle around him, their eyes watching with cold detachment. In the center of the arena stood Princess Ilara, her regal presence commanding the attention of everyone present. Lyle had no idea what kind of trial he was about to face. Was it a fight to the death? Some kind of endurance test? The possibilities raced through his mind, but there was no time for second-guessing. He had already made his choice. As Ilara raised her hand, the crowd fell silent. She spoke calmly, her voice echoing through the arena. "The trial begins now. You must face the challenges that lie ahead. Survive, and you will earn your freedom. Fail, and you will serve us no more." The words barely had time to sink in when the ground beneath Lyle's feet suddenly shifted. The sand seemed to ripple, and a loud screech filled the air. From the shadows, a massive creature emerged, its body covered in thick, armored scales, its eyes glowing with an eerie yellow light. It was unlike anything Lyle had ever seen before, a beast born of nightmare. The creature roared and charged, its claws scraping against the stone floor as it lunged at Lyle with terrifying speed. Without thinking, Lyle instinctively dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the beast's strike. His heart pounded in his chest as he rolled to his feet, his mind racing to process the situation. The creature was fast, strong, and relentless. Lyle knew he couldn't overpower it with brute force. But he wasn't just a soldier, he was a strategist. He had faced impossible odds before and had come out on top because he fought his way through problems. This was no different. As the beast lunged again, Lyle quickly scanned the arena for any advantage. He noticed a series of jagged rocks scattered across the edges of the arena. They looked unstable, but they could be useful. With his mind set on the plan, Lyle waited for the creature to charge once more. This time, he didn't dodge. Instead, he stepped to the side, letting the creature's momentum carry it forward. The beast crashed into the rocks, sending debris flying in all directions. Lyle wasted no time. He sprinted toward the creature, using the chaos to his advantage. As the beast struggled to regain its footing, Lyle climbed onto its back, grabbing onto the scales for leverage. The creature bucked and roared, but Lyle held on, focusing all his energy on subduing it. With a grunt of effort, he grabbed a shard of rock from the ground and drove it into the creature's weak spot, a gap in its armor just behind the head. The beast let out a final, echoing scream before collapsing to the ground, motionless. The arena erupted in cheers, but Lyle barely heard them. His mind was still racing from the fight. He had survived, but just barely. As he stood over the fallen creature, his body aching from the effort, he looked up to see Princess Ilara watching him with an unreadable expression. Her eyes locked with his. "You have proven your strength, human. But the next challenge will not be so simple." Lyle didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going down without a fight. Lyle stood in the center of the arena, his breath coming in sharp gasps as his body screamed in pain from the battle with the beast. Sweat covered his brow, and his muscles ached from the effort, but he refused to show weakness. He had just survived the first challenge, but he knew better than to relax. Ilara's trial was far from over. As the noise from the crowd died down, Ilara descended from her elevated platform. Her movements were graceful, almost otherworldly. As she approached Lyle, the warriors around him parted, allowing her space. Despite the respect they showed her, Lyle noticed the wary glances some of the Xerix soldiers gave him. He had earned their attention, but not necessarily their respect. Ilara stopped just a few paces in front of him, her piercing violet eyes never leaving his face. "You fought well, human. Your strength and skill have earned you this moment." Her voice was calm, but there was an intensity in her words. Lyle wiped the sweat from his forehead, still catching his breath. "Thanks," he managed to say, his voice hoarse. "But I don't understand. Why me? Why choose a human soldier for something like this?" Ilara's lips curved into a faint smile, though it was one that held little humor. "Because you are more than just a soldier. You are a leader, a survivor, and above all, you do not fear what others fear." She took a step closer, her gaze unwavering. "I have watched your kind for some time, Captain. You humans are different. You fight with a passion I have never seen before." Lyle felt a strange mixture of pride and confusion. He had always known humans were capable, but hearing it from Ilara, someone who had seen far more of the galaxy than he ever would, was humbling. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was going on. Before he could respond, Ilara continued, "I have made my decision. You will be my mate." Lyle's heart skipped a beat. Her words hit him like a physical blow. "Your mate? What do you mean by that? I'm not." He stopped himself, trying to process what she was saying. "You misunderstand." Ilara's tone softened, though there was still an unyielding strength in her words. "I am the daughter of the Xerix king. My life is not mine to control. I am expected to marry a noble, a powerful ally to my father's throne. But I refuse. Her gaze darkened, and she stepped closer. I choose you, Lyle, not because of your strength alone, but because you are the only one who does not treat me as a prize to be won. Lyle's mind raced. This was unlike anything he had ever imagined. A proposal from an alien princess. The very idea was absurd. Yet, looking into her eyes, he saw nothing but sincerity. She wasn't playing games. Why me? He repeated, this time quieter, genuinely curious. Ilara's voice was low, almost a whisper. Because you are not afraid of me. Not like the others. She paused, letting her words sink in. Because you see me as more than a title or a crown. Lyle wasn't sure what to say. He had always followed orders, always stuck to the mission. But this wasn't about orders. This was something personal, something far more complicated. The tension in the air thickened as Ilara took another step forward, closing the distance between them. You will help me change the course of this kingdom, Lyle, but only if you accept my offer. Lyle swallowed hard, torn between the weight of her words and the reality of the situation. This was bigger than anything he had ever faced. He wasn't just being asked to survive. He was being asked to reshape the future of an entire alien kingdom. It was madness, but somewhere deep inside, Lyle knew there was no turning back now. The journey back to the Xerix capital was a blur for Lyle. His mind was filled with thoughts of Ilara's unexpected proposal. Becoming her mate. It seemed like a dream, an impossible one. But as the Xerix warship cut through the stars, heading toward the distant city, Lyle couldn't shake the feeling that this was his new reality. The ship was unlike anything he had seen before. Sleek and smooth, it glided through the space with an elegance that felt otherworldly. The crew, made up of Xerix warriors and officials, moved with quiet precision, as if they had been bred for efficiency. Lyle was aware of their eyes on him, studying him closely as they passed by, but he kept his gaze forward. There was nothing he could do now but follow the path Ilara had set for him. When they finally arrived at the Xerix capital, Lyle was struck by its grandeur. The city sprawled beneath a towering mountain range, its spires and domes gleaming in the light of the twin suns. It was a place of immense beauty, yet there was a coldness to it, an air of power that lingered in every corner. The Xerix weren't like humans. Their culture was steeped in ancient traditions, and they ruled their world with an iron fist. Ilara led him through the city, and as they walked, Lyle couldn't help but notice the looks they received. The people stared at them with a mixture of awe, fear, and disbelief. Some whispered behind their hands, others bowed their heads in respect. It was clear that Ilara's choice was controversial, but she held her head high, unbothered by the murmurs. When they arrived at the palace, Lyle felt the weight of the moment settle over him. The walls were made of dark, polished stone, covered in intricate carvings that told the history of the Xerix people. Guards stood at attention as Ilara and Lyle entered, their eyes fixed on the human with a sense of curiosity and suspicion. Ilara led him into a grand hall, its ceiling stretching far above them, decorated with tapestries of ancient battles and victorious kings. At the far end of the room stood King Thaurix, Ilara's father. He was tall, with a presence that demanded attention. His armor was gold, etched with symbols of power, and his eyes, though calm, seemed to weigh every person in the room. Ilara approached her father, Lyle following closely behind. The king's gaze flicked toward the human, and Lyle felt an instant surge of tension. The Xerix king was not a man who would easily accept the presence of a foreign soldier, let alone one who was being considered as his daughter's mate. "Father," Ilara began, her voice steady, "this is Captain Lyle Reed. I have chosen him to be my mate." Lyle's heart skipped a beat as the king's eyes narrowed. There was no warmth in his gaze, only a cold calculation. King Thaurix regarded Lyle for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "You choose a human soldier over your own people?" the king asked, his voice deep and authoritative. Ilara stood firm, unflinching. "Yes, father. I choose him because he is strong, honorable, and not afraid of me." The king's gaze shifted to Lyle, sizing him up. "And what makes you think you can handle our kingdom, human?" His voice was a challenge, testing Lyle's resolve. Lyle met the king's eyes without hesitation, his voice calm and steady. "I don't claim to know your kingdom, your majesty, but I know how to lead and how to fight. If Ilara believes in me, that's all that matters." There was a long silence before the king spoke again, his tone softer but still heavy with authority. "We shall see, human. We shall see." Ilara stood beside Lyle, her presence unwavering as she faced her father. She had made her choice, and now, it seemed, the real battle was just beginning. Lyle had earned his place in the Xerix capital, but earning the king's approval would be another matter entirely. The days following Lyle's arrival at the Xerix palace were filled with tension. The air was thick with uncertainty as he adjusted to life in a kingdom that was nothing like the one he knew. Ilara stood by him, offering support, but the weight of her father's disapproval loomed over them both. King Thalrix had made it clear that he didn't approve of the union, but Lyle refused to back down. He had chosen to fight for Ilara, and now he had to prove his worth in a kingdom that was unfamiliar and unfriendly. Lyle spent his days learning the customs and traditions of the Xerix, trying to understand the complex web of politics that controlled their society. Ilara guided him through the palace, teaching him how to navigate the court, where every word spoken was laced with hidden meaning. There was a constant undercurrent of hostility, and Lyle could feel it every time he passed the nobles and warriors who openly stared at him. One name came up repeatedly in these conversations: Lord Rykon. He was a powerful Xerix noble who had long sought Ilara's hand in marriage. The court whispered that Rykon had been preparing to challenge the king's rule, and now, with Ilara's decision to choose a human, he saw an opportunity to further his own ambitions. Lyle first encountered Lord Rykon in the royal gardens. The nobleman was tall and imposing, dressed in elaborate armor that shimmered in the sunlight. His eyes, cold and calculating, flicked over Lyle with disdain. It was clear that Rykon didn't believe a human could ever be worthy of Ilara, and he wasn't afraid to show it. "You must be the human who thinks he can rule beside our princess," Rykon said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "How quaint. Tell me, soldier, what makes you think you belong here?" Lyle met his gaze without flinching. "I don't belong here because I'm human. I belong here because Ilara believes in me. That's all that matters." Rykon laughed, a sound that sent a chill through Lyle. "Believe me, human, your stay here will not be easy. You may have survived her trial, but the real test is yet to come. The Xerix court does not welcome outsiders, especially not one as insignificant as you." Lyle held his ground. He had faced worse threats in his time as a soldier, but the political games of the Xerix court were new to him. He couldn't help but feel the pressure mounting. Rykon wasn't just a nobleman. He was a force in the palace, and his influence extended far beyond his words. As days passed, the tension only grew. Lyle began to hear rumors whispered behind his back. Accusations that he was unworthy, that he was an outsider who didn't understand the ways of the Xerix. The court looked for any weakness, and even Ilara's supporters seemed to waver under the pressure. Ilara noticed the change in the court, the way the nobles started to look at her differently, as though questioning her decision. She felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on her. Some suggested that Lyle was a temporary distraction, a passing fancy. Others whispered that she had only chosen him out of defiance, and that her decision would bring nothing but chaos to the kingdom. One evening, as Lyle and Ilara walked through the palace halls, she turned to him with a troubled look. "They're not going to make this easy for us, Lyle. Rykon's influence is strong. He'll do whatever it takes to push you out." Lyle nodded, his jaw tightening. "I didn't come here to be pushed out. I'm here to stay, Ilara. I'll prove to them that I'm not just some soldier. I'll show them that I'm worthy of your trust." Ilara smiled faintly, her eyes softening. "I believe in you." But this is more than just about us now. The kingdom is watching. If we're going to succeed, we have to face them together. Lyle took her hand, his resolve strengthening. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for her, for their future, and for a kingdom that might never accept him. But no matter the challenge, he was ready to face it head-on. And Lord Rykon, along with the rest of the court, would learn just how far a human soldier would go for the woman he loved. The Xerix royal hunt was an ancient tradition, one that had been passed down through generations. It was an event meant to test the strength, skill, and courage of the kingdom's warriors. To hunt alongside the royal family was an honor, one that only the most capable could hope to earn. For Lyle, it was both an opportunity and a challenge. As the day of the hunt approached, the tension in the palace grew. Lyle had been informed that his participation in the hunt would be his next trial, a test not only of his physical abilities, but also of his place in the Xerix world. The nobles had already made it clear that they saw him as an outsider, but Ilara had insisted that he join, convinced that he could prove himself. The morning of the hunt, the palace grounds were alive with activity. Xerix warriors gathered in their finest gear, preparing their weapons and armor. Lyle, still adjusting to the ways of the Xerix, found himself standing beside Ilara at the edge of the royal courtyard. "Are you ready?" Ilara asked, her eyes scanning the group of warriors. She was dressed in the traditional hunting attire, leather armor with intricate patterns, designed for both protection and movement. Lyle adjusted the straps on his own gear, feeling the weight of the unfamiliar armor. It was heavier than what he was used to, but he had trained for situations like this. "Ready as I'll ever be." Ilara smiled faintly, her eyes gleaming with determination. "Good. This is not just a hunt. It's a way to show the kingdom that you belong. Show them your strength." Lyle nodded, understanding the stakes. This wasn't just about killing a creature. It was about proving himself worthy in the eyes of the Xerix people. The royal hunting party set out from the palace, traveling through the dense forest that surrounded the kingdom. The trees were tall, their leaves shimmering in the dappled sunlight. The air was thick with the smell of earth and foliage, and the sounds of distant creatures echoed through the forest. Lyle had been in forests like this before, but there was something different about this place. It felt ancient, alive with a history that he could barely comprehend. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Ilara took the lead, her hunting party following her every command. The Xerix warriors moved with a silent precision, their eyes constantly scanning the terrain for any sign of their quarry. Lyle stuck close to Ilara, determined to show that he was capable of keeping up with the Xerix elite. Suddenly, the air grew still. The birds stopped singing, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Ilara raised her hand, signaling for the group to stop. She motioned for Lyle to approach. "The creature we are hunting is close." Lyle's heart raced. He knew what kind of creature they were after, an apex predator of the forest, a massive beast known as the grafter. It was a creature of incredible strength and speed, its thick hide almost impervious to weapons. The hunt was not meant to be easy, and survival was never guaranteed. Ilara's voice was calm but firm. "We will move quickly. Stay close and follow my lead. If you can bring down the grafter, you will prove yourself to the kingdom." Lyle nodded, his mind focused on the task ahead. He wasn't just hunting for sport, he was hunting for his place in this world. He had to prove that he belonged, that he could stand beside Ilara as her equal. The group moved silently through the trees, each step measured and deliberate. The air was thick with tension, the only sounds being the crunch of leaves beneath their feet and the occasional snap of a twig. Then they saw it. The graftor emerged from the shadows, its massive body moving with an unsettling grace. Its eyes locked onto the hunting party, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Ilara's voice was a low whisper, barely audible. "Stay close. Let's see what you can do, Lyle." With that, the hunt began. The grafter lunged forward, its jaws snapping as it charged at the group. The Xerix warriors spread out, preparing to strike. Lyle was ready. He knew this was his moment. He wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for something far more important. As the grafter barreled toward him, Lyle's instincts kicked in. He sidestepped at the last moment, narrowly avoiding its massive claws. His hand shot out, grabbing a sharp, jagged rock from the ground, and he hurled it at the beast with all his strength. The rock struck the grafter's side with a sickening thud, but it didn't slow the creature down. Lyle didn't hesitate. He kept moving, dodging the creature's deadly attacks, waiting for the right moment. The hunt was far from over, and in the depths of the forest, he would prove once and for all that he belonged among the Xerix. The hunt had been intense, but the real challenge was yet to come. Lyle had proven himself capable in the wilds of the Xerix kingdom, but as the days passed, a different kind of threat began to reveal itself. In the shadows of the royal court, there was a dark plot stirring, one that would test his resolve more than any creature ever could. Lord Rykon had not let go of his ambition. After Lyle's success in the hunt, the noble had become increasingly vocal in his opposition, not just to Lyle's presence, but to Ilara's decision. Whispers filled the palace, and Lyle could feel the weight of the court's disapproval more than ever. It wasn't just his ability to survive that was in question now. It was his right to be there at all. One evening, as Lyle and Ilara walked through the palace gardens, Ilara stopped suddenly, her expression tight with worry. "Something is wrong." Lyle turned to her, sensing her unease. "What do you mean?" "There's been talk, quiet talk among the court. Lord Rykon and his allies have begun to scheme against you." Ilara's voice dropped to a whisper. "They want you gone, Lyle. They want to discredit you, to tear us apart before we can even begin." Lyle's heart sank. He knew Rykon didn't like him, but he hadn't realized the extent of the plot against him. The court had never been welcoming, but now it was clear they were not just questioning his worth. They were actively working to remove him from the palace. "What can we do?" Lyle asked, his mind already racing through possible strategies. Ilara's gaze darkened. "We need to be careful. They are using every tactic they can. They will twist the truth, create lies. They may even try to frame you for something you didn't do." Her eyes locked onto his. "You need to stay close to me. Trust no one but those who have already shown you loyalty." Lyle nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. He couldn't afford to let his guard down. Not now. The stakes had risen far beyond survival. They had become a fight for the future of the kingdom and their relationship. The next day, a summons came from the royal court. Lyle had been called to face charges of treason, an accusation that seemed as unfounded as it was dangerous. He had no idea who had planted the story, but the fact that he was even being accused of something so serious meant that the plot was gaining momentum. Ilara stood by his side, her resolve unshaken, as they entered the grand hall of the court. Lord Rykon was there, sitting at the head of a council table. His eyes gleamed with something like satisfaction as he watched Lyle and Ilara enter the room. The nobleman's supporters flanked him, their expressions cold and judgmental. "Captain Lyle Reed, you stand accused of conspiring against the Xerix throne." Rykon's voice boomed, cutting through the silence. "You have no place here. You are an outsider, a foreign soldier who seeks to destroy the very foundation of our kingdom." Lyle's blood ran cold, but he held his ground. "I have never conspired against the throne. I am here to support Princess Ilara, to stand by her side, and nothing more." His voice was steady, though he could feel the eyes of the court on him, waiting for him to crack. "Then why do we find evidence of you speaking against the Xerix royals?" Rykon continued. "And why do we hear of secret meetings with those who would see the kingdom fall into chaos?" Lyle's heart raced. He knew this was a lie, a fabrication meant to destroy him. But how could he prove it? The court was already turning against him, and even Ilara's presence wasn't enough to sway their opinion. "This is not true," Lyle said, his voice rising with frustration. "I have done nothing wrong. I am not your enemy. Lord Rykon, you are the one who wants to divide this kingdom, not me. Ilara stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. This is a trap. It's a scheme to weaken us. Lord Rykon has been plotting against us for months, and now he has found a way to turn the court against Lyle. Her eyes never left Rykon as she spoke, her tone unwavering. For a moment, there was silence. Rykon's eyes flickered with irritation, but he didn't respond immediately. Instead, the other nobles around the table whispered among themselves, the weight of Ilara's accusation hanging in the air. Lyle could feel the pressure building. His life, his future with Ilara, was now in the hands of the court. He had to act quickly, but what could he do to turn the tide in his favor? He needed proof, but there was none to be found. He had no choice but to trust in Ilara, to trust that together they could outwit Rykon and his allies. "We will not be intimidated," Ilara declared, her voice strong and clear. "We will not let you tear us apart. We will fight for the truth." The room fell silent, and for the first time, Lyle saw a flicker of uncertainty in Rykon's. The tension in the royal hall was palpable. Lyle stood beside Ilara, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew this would be the most difficult challenge of his life, not just a fight for his own future, but a battle for the very soul of the Xerix kingdom. Lord Rykon had called for Lyle's disgrace, but Ilara had not wavered. She had spoken the truth, and now the court was watching closely, waiting to see which side would triumph. "We will not be intimidated," Ilara's voice rang out, cutting through the charged silence in the room. "We will stand for what is right, and we will not let false accusations tear apart this kingdom." Lord Rykon shifted in his seat, his lips curling into a cold smile. "You speak of truth, princess, but truth is not what matters here. Power is what matters. The kingdom needs strength, and it does not find that strength in a human soldier." His gaze flickered toward Lyle, his eyes full of contempt. "You are nothing but an outsider, Captain Reed. You do not belong here." Lyle clenched his fists. He had been called worse in his life. Enemies who underestimated him had often been his greatest challenge. But today, the stakes were higher. His survival wasn't just about him. It was about protecting Ilara, protecting the kingdom they were trying to build together. He couldn't back down now. "I belong here because Ilara believes in me." Lyle's voice was steady, but his words carried weight. "And I believe in her. I fight for her and for this kingdom." Rykon's expression darkened. "Your words are nothing more than empty promises, human." A low murmur of agreement rippled through the court. Many of the nobles exchanged glances, clearly swayed by Rykon's words. But Ilara was resolute. She stepped forward, her posture proud, her eyes shining with determination. "Enough," she commanded, her voice strong and clear. "The kingdom is not built on prejudice. It is built on strength, unity, and honor." She turned to the nobles, her gaze sweeping over them. "I choose to unite our worlds, not divide them. If you cannot see that, then you are not fit to stand in this court." There was a long silence, but Ilara's words hung in the air, their power undeniable. Lyle could feel the eyes of the court on him, waiting to see how he would react. He had fought many battles in his life, but none like this. This was not about physical strength. This was about willpower, about proving that they were stronger together than they ever could be apart. Suddenly, the doors to the royal hall burst open, and a group of armed Xerix soldiers entered. Lyle's heart skipped a beat. Were they here to arrest him? Was this the end? But Ilara stood tall, unwavering. One of the soldiers stepped forward, his armor gleaming in the light. "We have witnessed the plot against Captain Reed." His voice was firm, but there was an undeniable respect in his tone. "We stand with him, princess. We stand with you." Lyle's breath caught in his throat. He looked at Ilara, who nodded slightly, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. It was happening. The tide was turning. Rykon's face reddened with anger. "You dare defy me." He snarled, rising from his seat. "Do you know who I am? I am the future of this kingdom." Ilara's voice was calm, but full of authority. "Not anymore." She turned to the soldiers. "Take him into custody. He will answer for his actions." The soldiers moved swiftly, their weapons drawn as they approached Lord Rykon. He fought back, but he was no match for the loyalty of the Xerix warriors. Within moments, he was restrained, his fate sealed. The nobles who had supported him stood in shocked silence, their plans unraveling before their eyes. Lyle felt a rush of relief, but it was short-lived. The battle was far from over. The kingdom was fractured, and it would take more than just a victory in court to heal it. But today they had won an important battle. Today they had shown the Xerix people that unity and strength came from accepting one another, from standing together, no matter their differences. Ilara turned to Lyle, her eyes softening. "We did it." Lyle nodded, his heart swelling with pride. He had fought for her, for their future. And together, they had taken the first step toward a new era for the Xerix people. But as the court erupted into whispers and murmurs of disbelief, Lyle knew this was only the beginning. The road ahead would be difficult, but with Ilara by his side, he was ready to face whatever came next. The palace was a buzz of activity. The grand halls were draped in banners of gold and deep blue, symbols of the Xerix royal family. Nobles and dignitaries from across the kingdom filled the courtyard, their voices rising in excited chatter. The day had finally come. It was the day of Ilara's coronation. Lyle stood beside her, feeling a mix of pride and disbelief. Only a few weeks ago, he had been a soldier on a routine mission, unaware that he would end up at the heart of an alien kingdom's power struggle. Now he was here, by Ilara's side, as she prepared to take the throne. It was a moment he had never imagined, but one he had fought for with everything he had. Ilara had earned her place on the throne, and today would mark the beginning of a new era. Her father, King Thaurix, had reluctantly stepped aside, his rule coming to an end after the plot against Lyle had been revealed. The nobles who had once opposed Ilara now stood with her, their loyalty secured through her actions, her strength, and her unwavering determination. As the ceremony began, Lyle's eyes wandered across the gathered crowd. There was no sign of Lord Rykon, who had been taken into custody after his failed plot to undermine Ilara's rule. Many of the nobles who had supported him had either been dismissed or brought to justice. The path to the throne was now clear for Ilara, and the court seemed to finally accept her as their true leader. Ilara stood at the front of the hall, her head held high, wearing the ceremonial armor of her people, a beautiful set of silver and gold armor with intricate designs that told the story of the Xerix kingdom. Her long dark hair flowed freely, and her eyes shone with the confidence she had earned through countless trials. Today, she wasn't just a princess. She was the ruler of the Xerix. The high priest stepped forward, a ceremonial staff in his hands. His voice echoed through the hall as he began to speak in the ancient tongue of the Xerix, blessing Ilara's rise to power. The air was thick with anticipation as the crowd fell silent, their eyes focused on the woman who would lead them. Lyle watched Ilara closely, admiring her strength and grace. He had known her as a warrior, as a leader, but today she was something more. She was the embodiment of hope for a kingdom that had long been divided. And in that moment, Lyle realized just how far they had come. As the high priest finished the blessing, Ilara knelt before the throne. The crown, a delicate yet powerful symbol of the Xerix monarchy, was placed upon her head. The moment it touched her hair, a wave of energy seemed to ripple through the room, as if the entire kingdom was recognizing her as its rightful ruler. The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices filled with joy and celebration. Ilara stood, her posture regal as she surveyed the room. The throne was hers. The kingdom was hers. And it was no longer a kingdom of division. It was a kingdom united under her leadership. Lyle stepped forward, his heart swelling with pride as Ilara turned to him. She smiled, her eyes meeting his, and for the first time, he saw not just a ruler, but a woman who had fought for everything she had. "We did it, Lyle." Her voice was soft, but filled with gratitude. Lyle nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. "No, Ilara. You did it. I'm just honored to stand by your side." The crowd continued to cheer as Ilara turned to face her people. The kingdom had chosen her, and now she would lead them into a new era. It was a moment of triumph for her, and for the both of them. But as the ceremony ended, Lyle knew their work wasn't finished. They had won the battle for the throne, but the real challenge lay ahead. Rebuilding a kingdom that had been fractured by years of conflict and distrust wouldn't be easy. But with Ilara as the queen, and with the bond they had forged together, Lyle was ready to face whatever came next. Together, they would lead the Xerics into a new era, one of unity, strength, and hope. The future had never seemed brighter. The days after Ilara's coronation passed in a blur of activity. The Xerix kingdom was alive with change. The palace, once a place of division and hidden tension, was now filled with the energy of hope and optimism. Ilara had made it clear to her people, a new era had begun, one that would be defined by unity, progress, and strength. Lyle, standing by her side, couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He had come to this alien world as just another soldier on a routine mission. He had never imagined that he would play such a vital role in a kingdom's transformation. But now, as Ilara's consort, he found himself at the center of a world unlike any he had known, one full of challenges, but also limitless possibilities. Ilara had already begun to make changes. She worked tirelessly to repair the broken relationships between the different factions within the kingdom. She called for open councils, encouraging voices from all corners of the kingdom to be heard. The nobles who once opposed her now served by her side, working to rebuild what had been lost in the years of political strife. But the real work, Ilara knew, lay in her people. She had always fought for them. And now it was time to show them that she was not just a ruler, but a leader who would guide them toward a brighter future. The kingdom would no longer be ruled by fear, but by cooperation. The Xerics would thrive not through dominance, but through unity. Lyle watched as Ilara met with advisors, discussing new plans for the kingdom's growth. She was everything he had come to admire: strong, intelligent, and fiercely dedicated. He had seen her as a warrior, but now he saw her as a queen, one who was capable of leading not just her people, but the entire galaxy into a new age. One evening, as they stood together on the balcony overlooking the palace grounds, Ilara turned to Lyle, her eyes softening as she spoke. "Do you ever wonder what comes next, Lyle?" she asked, her voice quiet, yet filled with hope. "We've won the crown, but we've only just begun. There's so much more to do." Lyle looked out across the kingdom, taking in the vastness of it all. The city below was bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, and he could see the activity in the streets. People working together, building something new. He had always been a soldier, focused on the fight, the mission, but now he was seeing the world through Ilara's eyes. It wasn't just about battles and survival. It was about building something lasting, something greater than himself. "I think we're ready for it," Lyle replied, turning back to her. "You've already shown them what you're capable of. Together, we'll make this kingdom the strongest in the galaxy." Ilara smiled, her hand gently reaching for his. "Together, yes." She squeezed his hand. "We'll create a legacy, not just for us, but for everyone who believes in what we can achieve together." And that was when Lyle knew. This wasn't just a kingdom, a throne, or a crown. This was the beginning of something bigger, something they would build together. They were laying the foundation for a new dynasty, one that would bring the Xerics into a future where they would no longer be feared, but respected and admired. As the stars began to twinkle above, Lyle looked at Ilara, the woman he had fought for, and who had now become his partner, his queen. The journey had been long, but they had made it. And together, they would face whatever came next, side by side. Their dynasty had just begun, and with it, the future was bright.